Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our fifth Ask an NEH Expert series. Today we're going to be talking to our website students. We know that many of you have started your NHD websites and you're working through them. You are making edits, you are changing them as you're getting ready for your contest, whether that be at a school level, a regional level, a state or affiliate level, or if things go really, really well, the national contest in College Park in June. My name is Lynn O'Hara, and I'm the Director of Programs for National History Day. I'm really excited to be here with Tracy Fullerton. She's our NEH expert today. And Elaine Kuntz. Elaine is our NHD IT manager. And many of you ask her your Weebly questions. I say she's our Weebly expert. So you're going to hear from both of them in the next segment. But before we get started, I want to turn things over to Julia Wynn at the National Endowment for the Humanities. Thanks, Julia.
Thanks, Lynn, and welcome to our Ask the NEH Expert video series. Before we get started, I want to take just a minute to say a few words about NEH, who we are, and what we do. So the National Endowment for the Humanities is a federal grant-making agency. We fund research, education, and preservation in the humanities, and certainly history is a very important part of the humanities. NEH supports a wide range of activities. This could include, for example, the creation of documentary films, writing books and articles, museum exhibitions, as well as online resources like websites and games. NEH also has a very long history with National History Day. We've supported History Day since its founding in the 1970s, and we continue to support the first place NEH Scholar Medals at the national contest. We also offer a special prize for excellent use of Chronicling America in your NHD project. If you don't know about Chronicling America, this is a collection of over 11 million pages of digitized historic American newspapers housed at the Library of Congress website, and it's a fantastic resource for both teachers and students. You may also know about Excitement, our education website. This is a key resource for teachers and students. Excitement has hundreds of lesson plans, student activities, links to websites that have been vetted by teachers and scholars, as well as special National History Day features and lesson plans dealing with Chronicling America. One final resource available to teachers is the summer programs that we offer every year. Each summer, we offer dozens of programs where teachers from all over the country can come together to explore humanities topics in depth. You can find information about all of this on our website, neh.gov. It's a great place to explore these resources and a lot more that we fund. But now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Tracy Fullerton. Tracy is a game designer, educator, and author with 25 years of professional experience. She's currently director of the University of Southern California's Games program, which is a collaboration between the School of Cinematic Arts and the School of Engineering. She's also a professor and chair of the Interactive Media and Games Division of the USC School of Cinematic Arts. She's currently working on the NEH-funded game Walden, which simulates Henry David Thoreau's experiment in living at Walden Pond. Thanks for joining us, Tracy.
Hi, it's my pleasure. How are you?
Great.
Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk today about this idea of digital media. And so for students out there, digital media is everything that you see on the web and lots of things that you don't. So it's kind of a broad umbrella. And both games and websites kind of fall under that umbrella. So realize that's a word we're going to use today. Can you start by telling us a little bit about what you enjoy creating and why you love digital media?
Well, I'm a game designer, and so what's not to love about that, first and foremost? I create play for other people to enjoy. And most recently, as what was mentioned, I'm making a game about Henry David Thoreau. So what I love about doing projects like this, first of all, is that I get to learn all about the material that I'm making games about. And then I get to put that material into a playful atmosphere and a world and characters and an experience that other people get to come and enjoy. So for me, the job of working in digital media is really one of connecting with other people and ideas.
Well, and I think you raised a really good point. You start where our students start, with research. So you
Yes.
learn as much as you can, and you look at lots of different types of sources. And how is it that you go from knowing a lot about a particular topic to starting to plan for digital media? So how do you plan for your games? Or what tips can you give our students as they plan for their websites?
So the most important thing, I think, when you start any project is to know why you want to do it. What is it that you want to say, and who do you want to say it to? So for example, if I want to make a game, what is that game about? What is the experience that people are going to have? In this case, what kind of history are they going to experience? And who is my audience? What kinds of games have they already played? What's their experience with different digital media platforms? Then when I think about what it is I want to say and who it is I want to say it to, then I can start to create an experience that's just for those people, that's very specific, and that will be interesting and engaging and exciting for those people to work with.
I like that idea. We talk to our students a lot about going out and looking and seeing what's out there. So looking at history websites, figuring out what you like, what you don't like, and then building to your strengths.
Building to your strengths, and once you know who it is, what it is you want to say and who it is you want to say it to, and you start planning, there's a very, very careful process that we go through. So we actually start out with just paper prototypes, for example. Like, why spend all your time building the technology right up front? You can actually lay out a website or lay out a game on cards. And you can say, okay, then a person's going to click here and they're going to go here, or they're, in a game, you're going to run over to this part of the world and this is what they're going to see. And we actually build these large paper prototypes so that we can play through before we spend any time coding, right? And that way, if you say, oh, this part isn't even needed, let's not do that. Let's spend our effort on the main part. Or this part isn't teaching the right kind of history. We can actually involve experts to come in and help us to make the piece align better with the facts and with what we're trying to teach. So there's this careful process where we go from, say, a paper prototype, and we get feedback from players and from experts, and then we start to build our technology. And we start to build, in this case, you'd build your website, and then you'd still do more play testing. You say, okay, is this readable? Is this understandable? Do people know to click on this part of the site or that part of the site, right? And you do these tests, and every time you do a test, you learn more information. It's amazing how you learn so much from putting your work in front of people. And you go through this iterative process where you make the changes, you test it again, you make the changes, and you keep making it better and better, and until you finally actually have the piece that you wanted to make with the ideas that you wanted, and it's speaking to the people that you wanted to talk to.
So there's rough drafts in the real world too. But I really like the point that you bring up, that you show it to people at different stages and say, hey, what do you think? Oh yeah,
playtesters are our best friends. That's what we call them. Sometimes we actually call them Kleenex playtesters, because often you can only use a playtester once, and then you have to go and get a new playtester, because once someone has actually used your website or your game, they sort of already know how it's going to work, right? So you can't really rely on their first impressions anymore. So we have Kleenex testers, and we use them once, and then we go get more.
Well, that's good, because nobody wants to share their Kleenex. No. Can I ask you another question? When you use, let's say you find a document that you want to use or an image you want to use, can you talk a little bit about what you have to do to use historical material responsibly?
So the most important thing is that you have to give credit, right? And when you're releasing things for educational purposes, that is the most important thing, is that you know who does it belong to, who owns what's called the copyright of that image or that piece of text or media, whatever it is that you're using, right? Someone owns the copyright, and that is literally the right to copy that piece or to use that piece in another piece. And you want to credit those people. You want to actually, there are very specific formats, which I'm sure that everyone's learning about how to properly credit the owner of a piece of music or an image or a piece of text. And that's the most important thing. Once you get into the realm where I am, where you're releasing games and people are going to pay money for them, then there's a whole other set of considerations that are legal and a little more complicated. But I think the first level, the most important level to think about, is that you're giving proper credit to the creators of the media that you're using.
Exactly. Quotation marks are your friend. And I would say if you're not sure whether to cite something or how to do it, this is where those teachers and librarians can be really, really helpful. I'd actually love to take that question and transition to Elaine with kind of a related question here. Can you talk a little bit about the proper way to credit materials within an NHD website? When you're, whether it be pictures or quotes or music, how would you suggest that students do that effectively?
Sure. So with all of our NHD websites and all of our categories, we suggest either Chicago or MLA, but you have to be consistent with one or the other. You can't switch between the two, but that's a no-no. So you want to credit anywhere from music to pictures to quotations, the quotes from people, and you use parentheses for any of the images, like little captions right underneath. Same with the videos, and also with the audio clips that you can put in, there's a little area to put text in, so you can have that scroll along with the title of the music and such.
Well, and that's really important too, because then the credits in there tie back to your annotated bibliography. So your judges can then get an explanation as to why you chose that piece of music or that audio clip. And that's really important, because we always say, you know, I joke that you want to stay out of plagiarism jail, because it's not a fun way to be. And sometimes I think it's easy on a website to accidentally cut and paste something over and kind of forget that it's not your own writing. Let's talk about multimedia for a second. Can you use multimedia on your website? And what are the rules about that?
Sure. Multimedia is definitely usable. It's the most usable on the website. So we do have a limit of 100 megabytes of information in terms of videos, text. It all counts towards the size limit, but Weebly does a really good job by letting you know how much of that space you're taking up on the landing page when you first log in. But you can also only have up to 4 minutes of multimedia, whether it's a song that's 4 minutes long, or if you loop, that's 10 seconds, it will only count once. So 10 seconds, and that's it. And you move on to the next multimedia element you have. So one time through on loops and videos and songs, they all count towards the multimedia.
So let me ask you kind of a related question, because I know we get this question quite a lot. Can you talk about, let's say you have a video, you have 1 minute of a video and you really want to put that in there. Can you talk about how you do that without embedding it? Because there's a rule against embedded content. So can you explain how to do that and why we have the rule? What's the purpose behind it?
Sure. It's the most frequently asked question of embedding. So the videos, a lot of kids just like to take the embed code from YouTube and put that right in. But there is a process that you need to go by in terms of downloading that video, or even if it wasn't on YouTube, reaching out to a news station and getting the original file, the raw file that you can break down however you like and re-upload it onto your website. And we have that in place because video files can go away at any point. So if you go into judging and the video that you embedded is gone from the host's side of it, it wouldn't look too good and you might be really upset. So you want to make sure that you have that file and that you're citing that file from where you got it and who the original creator is.
I also remind students a lot that much of our judging takes place in schools, on university campuses, and sometimes there are filters. So if you have the embedded content, you know your judge is going to be able to see it. Whereas, you know, at the end of the day, remember, our judges can't judge what they can't see. Video doesn't play, it doesn't help you. Right. Well, kind of based on that, I'd like to actually shoot back to Tracy here and kind of go back to this question of revision, because you talked about, you know, using testers and having people look at your website. But can you give some tips? Because sometimes, you know, you do that and you'll get maybe 3 different people with 3 very different opinions of what you should do. So how do you handle that as the person in charge of the media?
This happens all the time. You're absolutely right. You bring in different people, they all have this is how you should do it, this is how you should do it. And the most important thing is that you listen to not the answers they're giving you, but you try and listen through to the problems that they're having with your project, right? So why are they trying to suggest to you that you should have a whole, section over here, or in a game you should have an inventory over here? Why are they suggesting it? What are they missing that they're giving you this answer? And you don't necessarily want to use their answer. What you want to do is say, okay, they're having a problem with this part of my project. I need to find a solution that works with what I'm trying to say, right? And so it's not really a matter of doing what the playtesters tell you to do. It's really a matter of listening to them and synthesizing the ideas that they are giving you by trying to figure out what problems they're having, and then answering the problems in your design with your own ideas.
I really like that point. It's about identifying the problems and remembering too that you are the expert here. You know your topic better than anybody in the room, so it's really your task to figure out the solution. And I
exactly.
think that's
as a designer, you don't want to just take an answer from a player, right? It's a creative process of taking suggestions and problems from a lot of players and sort of finding a single elegant answer to the various problems that many players or users might have.
Well, I think, a lot of times too, students will ask us questions about what they can do to make their product, their websites look more professional. Well, you're a professional in this area. So what kinds of tips or suggestions can you give our students as they're revising their work and getting ready for that contest?
I mean, I think the answer is in the question, as they're revising their work. So, you never want to turn in something that looked like it's the first draft. You never want to turn in something that looks like you just did it last night. That just isn't going to look professional. It isn't going to look like you spent the care to really polish it and revise it and make it better over several different revisions. Have you proofread it? Have you looked at, make sure that all the spelling is correct? I mean, that's the first number one thing that can tell that you've done something in a hurry, is if there's spelling or grammar errors. Also, though, are things misaligned, for example? You want to make sure that there's a smoothness and that you've really gone through and had other people look at it and looked at yourself. After a good night's sleep, you look at your work and say, oh my God, it's all misaligned, right? And you want to make sure that you get those things all tightened up and made really beautiful, right? And that's what's going to look professional. Because professionality really is about taking the most care you can and doing the best job that you can.
I think that's a really good piece of advice. I know, one thing that I know is no one can be their own editor. It's important to let other people read, because I know I have a problem. I skip verbs in sentences. The sentence makes perfect sense to me, and I've read it back 10 times. But it's when somebody else reads and goes, I think you're missing a couple words in here. I think that can be really powerful. And I think, that's a really good point, to give yourself that time to revise and to, sleep on it and think about it whenever possible is always best.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me take this and bounce this back over to Elaine. I want to ask you a question about word count, because we get a lot of questions on websites. Our website students are limited to 1,200 student-composed words, which sounds like a lot until you start writing. Can you talk a little bit about what counts and doesn't count in that word count issue?
Sure. So any words that you create in terms of a sentence that's going to describe a picture or something that you think up and that you type on the screen as your own will go towards your word count. The words that don't go towards that word count are quotations from other cite them, and block quotes, and any type of material that you did not think up on your own. So it's student composed versus other types of information that you find and apply to your website.
Exactly. So using those primary sources like that Chronicling America article, that's not going to count. But underneath it, where you explain why this is important or why you chose it, then that absolutely does count. Can you talk just a little bit too about tips for making an argument? Because sometimes when websites get, especially first drafts of websites, they tend to be very, very factual. This happened, and this happened, and this happened. And sometimes our students miss the whole idea of the thesis statement and the argument. Can you give them some tips to avoid that?
A lot of the time I see websites that start with the thesis. So as soon as you hit that homepage, you'll see the argument or what they're going to be talking about specifically to the theme. And then all of the top bar or in the drop down, however you decide to design it, will support or disagree with that argument. So it's really key to kind of hit your audience in the face with what you're going to be talking about first and not list a bunch of random facts and then get into it. So stick with it on the homepage and then break it out into all the other subpages that you need.
Exactly, and come back to that conclusion. I think sometimes that conclusion page is something that students tend to forget, and I think that's the biggest difference. I also want to mention, I get asked a lot, do you really count the words? Elaine and I are here to tell you at the national contest, if you're in finals, somebody's actually counting your words. Okay, we cut and paste them into Word and let the word count do it, but I'm here to tell you that actually matters, and we're actually going to check that. Because remember, the rules are there not just to be mean, but the rules are there to be fair. Because if I have to write in 1,200 words and Elaine gets away with 2,200 words, it gives her an unfair advantage in the contest. And we want to keep that playing field as level as we possibly can. Okay, one more question, Elaine, before we wrap. Can you just tell us what you think is really cool about building websites, and what are some advantages that website builders have that maybe students in our other categories don't?
Sure. I think the website category is a really cool one. I'm an alumni of NHD, but when I did mine, I did a documentary, and I kind of wish I would have done a website because it's the most interactive element of NHD. You can build it however you want. In a documentary, you have a timeline and you have to stick to that 10 minutes, whereas, you have a size limit and a multimedia limit, but you can use that in a wide range of different combinations.
Well, I think those are all really good things, and I hope, students, that you've gotten some really good tips on how to kind of think through your website design, how to clean it up and make it look professional, and quite frankly, how to have a little bit of fun along the way. Okay, well, thank you so much, Tracy and Elaine, for being our guests today. To wrap things up, I'm going to turn things back to Julia.
Thanks, Lynn, and thanks again to Tracy and Elaine. Finally, I would just remind you that NEH offers a variety of resources for History Day students and teachers, Chronicling America, Excitement, professional development for teachers, and don't forget your state councils. Every state has a humanities council, and many of the state humanities councils are also involved in National History Day, and they can be a great resource for you as well. So thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, and good luck with your NHD websites this year.